You know, I was going to wait until tomorrow to record this, but my brain just started running like a mile a minute, so I just might as well talk about it now.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and welcome if you happen to be new here. This is going to be my review of the 6-episode run of Ironheart on Disney Plus, starring Dominique Thorne as Riri Williams. And there's a lot to talk about with this one, which I wasn't surprised there was going to be a lot, but I don't know how long this video is going to be, so try to bear with me. I will stress that this video will have some spoilers, but I'm going to wait like 6 minutes or so to try to just generally talk about how I felt about the show, what my thoughts are on it without going too much into spoilers. But it is difficult to talk about the show without spoiling it. So if you have not watched the series yet, I do recommend checking out Ironheart on Disney Plus. The TLDR of it, I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed the 6-episode run. I thought Dominique Thorne does a wonderful job as Riri Williams. I liked her performance in Wakanda Forever, and this just kind of expounds more on Riri's backstory, where she's at in terms of some trauma and past grief that she is still processing. I thought the introduction of some new characters within the universe was really well done. Surprised at some of the cameos we got within the series. And I really like her suit design. I like the completed Ironheart suit towards the end of the 6-episode run. I really hope they do more with her, especially where they leave it off. But yeah, overall, I think the series was really well done. I wish they gave it more than just 2 weeks in terms of jamming all the episodes within 2 weeks. That is a perspective on how Marvel and Disney handle certain properties, which I have my gripes with. Regardless of what you hear people say online about it, good or bad, I would question a lot of the bad, because a lot of people were, as we have seen with other certain properties like your She-Hulks, your Miss Marvels, your Echoes, you have to really take the perspective of certain people with a grain of salt. So no matter what I say or what anybody says, I will always tell you, watch something and make up your own opinion on it. If you have an opinion, everybody has an opinion. Let's just be real on that. Everybody has an opinion when it comes to properties and things. Some people are going to have not as much constructive criticism for a property as others will have. Just make sure you watch something on your own. If anything, just make sure you form your own opinions about whatever you watch. That's all I'm going to say about it. That's the TLDR of it. I think the series was a lot of fun. I think it explored a lot of interesting perspectives that we don't always get. I thought the graphics for the series were actually really good. I thought the special effects were good. I enjoyed most of the supporting cast. Some of them are just kind of there, but that's a lot of things. But I thought the story itself was concise and was focused enough on what it needed to focus, while also introducing some interesting elements that I was not expecting. And somebody finally made their debut in the MCU. That's all I'm gonna leave it at that. So that's the non-spoilery stuff without getting too in-depth on it. I say check it out, but no matter what I say, please go watch it and form your own opinions about the series. If you like it or if you don't, it's totally fine, but make sure if you don't like it, really look at why you don't like it. But anyway, a couple things with spoilers. I won't get into the big spoilers just yet, but like I said, I really liked Dominique Thorne's portrayal of Riri Williams. She is very intelligent, very smart, but also very driven and passionate about what she's doing. One of the elements that I felt that the series explored really well is how ambition and a drive can be wonderful and great and can lead you to do amazing things, but also can cause a lot of problems when it comes to how driven and focused one is on their particular goal. In Riri's case, it was rebuilding her suit. Again, she had a suit in Wakanda Forever, but obviously couldn't take that home with her. So she was enrolled at MIT, but she ends up getting expelled for one reason or another and has to go back to Chicago with her mom. And there's more story there in regards to what happened to her stepdad and her best friend Natalie. They were killed a few years prior to the events of Wakanda Forever. So I know in Wakanda Forever, I know they mentioned her stepdad and the car. Remembering that movie, I do know that they did imply that her stepdad was no longer with her. So, but didn't know the circumstances until watching Ironheart. So that trauma and grief of losing two of the most important people in your life clearly was never addressed in terms of how she processed it. Obviously, her processing was to compartmentalize and focus on her suit, focus on creating the suit. And one of the threads throughout the episode, when people were asked her, like, you could do anything, why are you building a suit? And she just kept saying, because I can. It was not until later on that, you know, she wants to be able to protect the people that she loves, which was obvious, but also not. It would force her to remember more of what happened because she felt powerless in that moment when they were unfortunately gunned down in a drive-by and there wasn't anything she could do about it. That is hard. And everybody has lost someone important to them in their life. So that is something which honestly anybody should be able to connect with. Do people connect for various reasons? Obviously not, because we live in a world where people are just racist or misogynist for no goddamn reason, but I digress. I really thought the series explored that pretty well. It's very similar to how I felt how they kind of handle WandaVision, in the sense of these two characters gone through a great tragedy, and how they process it is not necessarily in the healthiest of ways. Obviously, Riri is her drive to complete her suit or to rebuild what she was taken away from her with her expulsion from MIT. She does not have the same resources as Tony Stark, obviously. And this is a prime example of how two people, gifted, brilliant minds, even three if you throw in Shuri, three people with gifted minds but have different accessibilities to resources to bring those ideas to life. Riri had to struggle much more than Shuri and Tony ever had to really do, in the sense of like getting the resources to bring her vision to life. So yes, she does get in the more illegal side of things, where she teams up with Parker, who is the Hood, who has a magical hood that lets him go invisible and curve bullets and all this stuff like that. So the introduction of magic and science and how they coexist, I want to say this is like the first time we really kind of messed with it within the MCU, at least from my recollection. Yes, you've had your stuff like your Thor and how
your ancestors called it magic and you call it science. Well, I come from a place where they're one and the same thing.
Okay, yeah, whatever, dude. In terms of like, we've had a number of years of introducing true magic and sorcerers into the MCU through Doctor Strange, through WandaVision, through Agatha All Along. To have that sort of clashing ideologies within the show was actually very interesting to watch and explore. We also got the introduction of a character named Zelma and her mom, played by Cree Summers, which I love Cree Summers. I've grown up with Cree Summers, so to see her involved in this project was very awesome. Zelma, I'm unfamiliar with her comic book origins, but she is a sorceress. Her mom, they tied it in the Karmatage, and she was a former sorceress, has taught her daughter, and that's where they introduce the long-awaited reveal of Mephisto, played by Sacha Baron Cohen.
Took you long enough.
He is in this series as the person who has gifted Parker with the hood. Also, I'm assuming for his soul. Yes, Mephisto was spoiled for me. It was spoiled because I watched it today, and I think the episodes dropped today, and then obviously someone posted online that, oh my god, Mephisto's finally here. I'm like, well, thanks, dude. I appreciate that. I need to stay offline. The introduction worked, and I was surprised that they did this with Ironheart. But the more I think about it, it actually works because you set up the Hood as the villain for this. You definitely tease the whole magic and stuff like that. So it makes sense that you finally introduce the devil into the MCU. Where it goes from here is what I'm curious about, because you also introduce Ezekiel Stane, which is played by, what's his name? He played young Han Solo. Alden Ehrenreich, I think is his name. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he plays Ezekiel Stane, who helps Riri initially, but eventually through an accident and one of Riri's mess ups, because there's a lot of mess ups she has in this, which makes the reveal of Mephisto even more like, I kind of had a feeling where this was going, and it kind of goes where I think it was going. But bringing him in to kind of tie in Iron Man 1, and I forget that most people don't remember that Obadiah Stane was the Ironmonger. Like, they just made up a story that he died in a plane crash. So to bring that back around and to put that pressure on him, and that forces him to end up becoming like his father, it went along with what we typically see with MCU heroes creating their own villains. I mean, all of Tony Stark's villains were created by him. It falls in line with that. So the introduction of those two characters is interesting, and where they show up again in the future, if we get more, would be very interesting to see. Like I said, I talked about the concept of privilege. When people want to say like, oh, Riri's not as smart as Tony, I'm like, she's definitely on par with him. Because you gotta understand, Tony had all these tools. Like, Riri didn't have much at the start of the series. She was in MIT, but she got kicked out. She took a couple things with her, but most of the stuff. And can I just point out, in that first episode, they shut off her suit while she was mid-flight? That's like homicide or something. Like, geez, yes, she took it. I get it. But also, she built it, so I don't blame her for it.
I'm leaving here with something. You know what I mean? I'm from around the way. I'm leaving with something.
Again, a lot of the decisions she makes do kind of blow up in her face, unfortunately. She borrows the tech from Ezekiel, promising not to get him tied to it, but accidentally drops it, which causes him to get arrested and forces him to end up joining with Parker and becoming part android or something like that. He gets augmented really crazily. You know, she defends herself against Parker's cousin because he's trying to kill her, but in turn ends up killing him, which sends Parker on a rampage. And so a lot of the stuff, and like some of the fallout with her mom, her friend / love interest, because the AI that she accidentally creates, Natalie, is a spitting image of her dead best friend. And that becomes a whole question about like AI and how much of it is sentient and not, because there is a certain point where there is a strong level of sentience that Natalie has within, not only as her AI, her onboard unit, but of how she was created, which again, introducing Mephisto in this starts to make me question how much of this was just fate or how much of it was by design, because based off of how the series ends, or the miniseries ends, Mephisto wants Riri. The same way he got Parker. I think Parker was always just a pawn, but he wanted Riri. And as we got closer and closer to how the series was ending, I just was sitting there like, oh no, she's gonna take the deal. Because everything got really bad. Not really bad to the point, but Natalie, because they decided to integrate magic into her new suit, it forced the AI program to be deleted. So she couldn't resurrect Natalie. And in turn, she makes a deal with Mephisto, and Natalie actually comes back, but not as an AI, as a physical being. So it's, yeah.
Those aren't even words.
When someone goes through a great tragedy or loss of someone they truly love, and while the series does a really good job showing that she's recovering, the more she opens up to her mom, the more she spends time with Natalie and how Natalie has evolved to be a hologram representation of her memories and stuff like that. And she's kind of in a good place almost. Then it gets ripped away when she loses Natalie again, forcing her to ultimately make a deal with the devil. It's not necessarily, I would say, a tragic end, because clearly the way the show ends, because they reveal that she's starting to get the bangs the same way that Parker got from the hood, it's up in the air how they're going to process this or how they're going to handle it going forward. And if this was a couple years ago, I would be like, oh, they've already got this shit planned out. I don't know. And that's why I have an idea, because we've had rumors of Young Avengers. And obviously Ironheart would make a great addition to the Young Avengers. We've already established a new Hawkeye, played by Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop. We have Miss Marvel, Iman Vellani. We've also had Wiccan, thanks to Agatha all along. And I believe the next series next year is Vision Quest, where I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that where they're supposed to be having Tommy in there? I don't remember. I've kind of avoided a lot of stuff, so I don't fully remember. Is there enough time to squeeze in Young Avengers? Because I can see the Young Avengers going up against Mephisto. Since we've introduced Mephisto now, I could see them doing that in Young Avengers. It would also be a way of freeing Riri from the deal with Mephisto if you have Wiccan, who, with the tutelage of Agatha, probably is going to be a lot stronger by the time the next time you see him. It's just an idea. I don't know with the current state of how they're handling the MCU and with it being so close to Avengers Doomsday, like how are these things going to happen? If they're going to happen. Again, they might not even do anything with Young Avengers, which would be a shame. It would be something I would say a few years ago would have been like a dead ringer for, but now I don't know. I would hope they would do something, because you left it in a spot where it would make sense to do something. But again, you did the same thing with Eternals, and we haven't seen a peep of Eternals in forever. A lack of resources will force anyone into a tight corner. So, because I've seen arguments of people like, oh, Riri's a criminal. I'm like, half of the people in the MCU are criminals. Hell, we just had a movie a month ago with a bunch of criminals who ended up saving the day for some shit that they ended up doing. So all the wild criticisms I've seen about the show feel so forced and far-fetched when I'm watching it. It does have a slow burn at the beginning. Like the first 2 episodes are fairly slowish. Because you are doing a lot of setup. You are doing setup of these characters, of the location, and of where our story is going. Episode 3 really is where you get the meat of stuff hitting the fan. And that sets everything into the downward spiral that we get with the last 3 episodes. I really wish Disney had more confidence into giving this more time to breathe instead of shoving everything into 3 batch episodes. I would have preferred it to be a little stretched out or even get 8 episodes. But I mean, it was a mini series. They didn't count it like a season, so it's whatever. But I will comfortably say I enjoyed Ironheart. I thought the design of the costume was great. I thought the character work was really well done. The surprise of having, cameo characters and finally revealing Mephisto completely threw me for a loop in terms of like how this was going to wrap up. I think how it wraps up leaves it open for more, especially if you do something like, it would make sense to do something like in a Young Avengers, because then you can have them help free Riri from this and to stop Mephisto, or at least, stop him. But I think the show was fun. I thought it had a lot more layers. And if you really kind of take it all in and see it from a different perspective, I think you'll also appreciate a lot of the depth and layers that the show actually has. That's just my personal opinion. Please watch it and form your own opinion. Let me know what you thought about Ironheart in the comments down below. Please be nice. I'm just giving my opinion, and please keep it positive, because I try to stay very positive on this channel. So please respect that. But I would love to talk to you about it. And let me know your thoughts of like where we can see Riri and Mephisto and any of the other characters pop up at in the future. Appreciate you checking this out. Subscribe to the channel if you would, please. You can check out a bunch of the stuff. YouTube's going to start floating over here on the side. You can follow me on most social media at DGeekWill. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And as always, until next time, I will catch you later. See ya.